My name is Travis Woods, and I own Collaborative Advice, and my unexpected hobby is no-code app development.
Welcome to Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors, the podcast where we interview fellow financial advisors about their pursuits and pastimes beyond their professional persona, some of which may be surprising to their colleagues and clients. We're interested in what makes them tick and how their unexpected hobbies might or might not relate to their everyday lives. Here's our discussion with this week's guest.
We've got Travis with us, and Travis, welcome. It's great to have you here.
Great to be here.
I've got Brian here as well. Welcome, Brian.
Yeah.
I'm here too. Hi, everybody. Hi, Travis.
Hey, we thought he might forget about you there for a minute.
Hey, that's fine. I'm a fan too.
All right, so how would you describe and define the unexpected hobby that we're going to be talking about today?
Yeah, I would say it's called no-code app development. So it's basically building computer applications without having to know how to code.
Did you have a coding background before, or have you always been no coding?
Not at all, no. So my background is in finance, pretty traditional, majored in finance, have done nothing but finance my whole professional life. I would say it probably somewhere around 2015-ish or so, you started seeing this proliferation of tools like Zapier and tools that would connect certain softwares. And that, I guess you could call it, was my gateway drug into, doing these. And so it really was just this like, I wonder if I can do this. And then, I would research it and try to do it. And so it just led to full-blown building stuff without knowing how to code.
All right, so for the people who don't just already know what no-code coding is, like, is that like paint by number for computers? I mean, I know, but here's an underhand pitch here. Like, what is no-code coding?
Yeah, so, like for a traditional application, think about Facebook or anything like that, you would literally have to write just hundreds of millions of lines of code. And so a lot of times you need to be a software engineer or anything, or be self-trained, but understand these different languages that you'd have to write. And again, 10 to 15 years ago, a lot of, companies started coming out with platforms where they essentially abstracted away the need to be able to write code. There was still code underneath it, but it was more drag and drop, pre-built type components, and all the code was handled behind the scenes without you having to know anything. And so it really opened the door for people that didn't have any kind of computer science background to be able to build things that they had in their mind.
And did you come at this with like, hey, this sounds like an interesting puzzle, let's see what I can do? Or did you have some sort of burning problem in your life that you've been trying to solve and, hey, this might be a solution?
Yeah, I think at first it was just this constant, maybe I wanted to connect my CRM to my email, and so whenever somebody, would sign up a new client, it would automatically trigger something else in a different, disparate software. So it was there was a lot of hopes for efficiency at that point. Then I think when it became more of a hobby was when I saw certain things in my life outside of work, just in my personal life, that could use something totally bespoke. There wasn't anything out there. And the earliest example I have was, so at my house, my wife handles like all the Christmas shopping come Christmas time, and we're in the South. And so we each have, lots of family, and everybody buys everybody a gift. And so she was constantly having to like keep up with who do I need to buy a gift for? Who have I bought one for? Try to, keep it at some price. We're trying to stay below, budget basically. And so I built her this little app that she could have on her phone where she could real quick see who she bought a gift for, who she hasn't bought a gift for, how much she spent. So she's trying to stay. And so I built it and my wife is not impressed by any of this stuff, like not even in the remote. So when I told her, like, I saw how she was keeping up with it, and I was like, "This is crazy. Like, I think I can build you something." And she
Your
was
system
like,
is terrible.
"Yeah, yeah." That was basically what I was
I'm
telling
going to
her.
solve your problem unasked.
Yeah, yeah. Just what every good husband does, right?
Right,
And
right.
so, I did it, and I loaded it on her phone, and she was like, "This is amazing." Yeah. I felt like, wow, okay,
Genuinely,
like,
like
yeah, yeah,
non-sarcastic.
yeah. Like she was like, wow,
Oh,
this is
wow.
so
Thanks,
helpful
Travis.
for me. I'm able to keep up with this so much better. To where then like the next year she was like, I need you to update that so that I can use it. And so for me, that's when I started seeing, oh wow, outside of maybe efficiencies in my own work, there are things in my personal life that I could use this for, if there wasn't a solution already out there that was good enough.
Sure, sure. All right. And so I guess we're always curious about how people's hobbies overlap with their professional life, but this came out of originally solving problems with
Hmm.
a CRM situation, and then it's just blossomed and
Yep.
snowballed from there.
Yep. So one of the ways I've used it in my business world. So like there was one business I was involved in. It was a real estate business, and I was more just kind of a strategic partner in that. But what I saw pretty quickly was the individuals operating the business were having a hard time keeping track on with stuff. There was a lot of, deals that may be in the pipeline. They're trying to make sure, nothing falls through the cracks. You're having to do a lot of communication with ancillary professionals, so attorneys, bankers, things like that. And so I built the whole basically operating system that they used for that business to track stuff coming in, when things are closing, who do we need to talk to. So it was really cool to see how it started with us just piecing together a bunch of things that I was able to say, hey, I think I can build us something that we can use. And we sure enough, we were able to use it and to operate the business. And
So it
so,
sounds like a project management aspect and not a
yep,
CRM, but a professional contact, relationship management,
yep.
and automations,
Yep, and
and it
it
worked.
even yeah, it even had like there were certain people, like if let's just say they came across a house and they weren't gonna, they thought, you know what, this probably isn't a good fit for us. They the software we had like a list of people in there that we knew were also interested in buying real estate, and it would match the house to those people and give us like, hey, here's the top two you need to reach out to put them in touch with this. And so there was some more complicated stuff behind the scenes. So, and then I've built like for my financial planning business, I've built calculators for people to use. And, so I very much have figured out how to use it for my business, but it's still this like, I, I would just do it for things I find fun and interesting. It doesn't have to be for my business.
Has it gotten to the point where you're like being referred to by, hey, I know a guy, he does this coding thing and he can
Yeah.
solve your problem? And it's, well, actually, I do financial planning,
Yeah.
but sure, that
Yeah.
sounds like a fun problem to solve. And
Yeah, I actually have. I've had conversations with people who maybe they've seen some of the stuff I've done and they say, man, I've got this idea that either I have for my business or another business or, something in my personal life. I've always thought about it and thought that it could be made into something, but I thought it would just be, insanely expensive to have somebody
hard.
do it. And
Yeah.
yeah, hard, expensive, like don't even like not even possible. And so they'll say, like, do you think you could build this? And I'm like, well, tell me more about it. Let me see if I'm interested. And yeah, let's see what we can build. And what's been really interesting, I always have thought of myself as a non-creative person, like very much a numbers, linear kind of person.
Finance
But
major.
yes, exactly, like through and through. But this hobby has showed me like a creative side, because when you're doing an application. You can't just throw in an input, for someone to put in their name or number. You have to think through, well, do they know to click there? Or are they going to think they need to click somewhere else? What happens if they look at it on their phone? Will it work there just as well as it works on their computer screen? What about these colors? Do they clash with each other? You're trying to help think through. And so it helps you tap into this, or at least for me, this creativity that I frankly never knew I had.
Joshua and I talk about this a lot. Is just, with me and with pinball, it's unexpected that I built a pinball machine. But if you think about it, you kind of peel the onion back a little bit. It's like, no, it shouldn't be unexpected at all, because I kind of have a strong right brain and a strong left brain. And where I work best is when I get to use those pretty regularly, pretty equally. And that's what building a custom pinball machine was at the end of the day. Like, looking back, it's like, oh no, it makes sense that I gravitated toward that hobby, because there's plenty of left brain with the electrical engineering and the code and the things like that, but there's art and there's music and there's design, and there's plenty of right brain too. And very much like our careers is a good balance of that. So the things you're like, oh, I'm kind of surprised, but I guess I would say upon further inspection, you shouldn't be surprised. It actually makes total sense why you like this sort of thing.
Yeah. And I think one of the most interesting things that have come out of it for me is I can even see, like, if I'm, facing a financial planning, situation where, like most of them, there's no right or wrong answer. There may be a better or worse answer, but any of them could, in theory, be right. There's multiple ways to the same destination. And so I've been able to stretch that muscle a little bit more in what appears to be a totally different area, but it's helped me be better at thinking through problems on the financial planning side. And so what originally was, an effort in some efficiency became something that allowed me to be creative and exercise some muscles that I normally don't. But then it just comes right back to it. It makes me better at my profession.
So have you ever had the opportunity, when talking with other professionals that are facing similar problems, have you ever been, hey, have you tried building your own app, constructing your own widget using this no code? Have you been able to get other people involved in the hobby, either on the hobbyist side or on the, hey, this is useful to your professional life kind of thing?
Yeah, I can't say that there's a single person that got involved in it because of me, but I guess the involvement I've seen is people saying, oh, now I see how it's possible to do this thing that I wanted to do, or meet people who maybe they had a career in something totally different and built a tool and then totally went all in on that tool, and it's now their livelihood, their business. That's been the really cool part, or seeing folks that, again, the effort it was going to take to get the thing off the ground that they had in their mind was literally within arm's reach, and they never realized it. And so they said, actually, I know a guy, my buddy, who does this. I didn't know I could use that for this particular problem. I'm going to get him to do it. And so it's been really cool to see businesses or folks that, had a need could get it solved really quickly. I haven't really converted anybody yet. I can't think of anybody that I've converted. It's not from lack of trying. I think I've told they're probably just tired of hearing me talk about it.
No, it makes sense because it's not really an end in itself.
It's kind of very acute questions. Can I buy this house? How much car can I buy? Things like that. And so there's largely like a lack of, kind of one-off tools to do those kind of calculations and give some analysis around those. And I think, for a lot of folks, they're kind of interested in that,
And to be able to have a conversation with the developer and understand what are the assumptions, because you can go to a million websites and find a million calculators, but what's going on behind the scenes, nobody knows. But you do, and you can talk to them about. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And it's stuff that, honestly, I would venture most of the tools I've built were a spreadsheet. Like we all have these like monster spreadsheets
Right.
that have like multiple pages and they have all these inputs and formulas, and you know where everything goes, but nobody else does. If anybody else touched it, it would just, combust right there in front of you.
Brian, stop touching my spreadsheets.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So everything I've built was literally something I had just built in a spreadsheet. I just made it more formulaic on, hey, here's where you put inputs. Here's where it gets stored. Here's the output. And so I would bet there's, anybody that listens to this has anywhere from 2 to 5 spreadsheets that if they took the time to say, how could I make this into a self-service type software, they could do it. Because that's literally what I've done with all of mine. I mean, even the example I gave with my wife tracking Christmas, that was a spreadsheet she was using. We just turned it into something else and made it way more accessible and less fragile.
So if somebody is hearing what you're saying and recognizing there's an opportunity in my life to make this a much better experience for everybody, do they start with Bubble or Glide or Wikipedia, or
Yeah,
where does somebody go to get their feet wet?
I would probably start on YouTube, honestly, and search no code app development, because it is insane the amount of stuff that's out there. I would start there. I would start playing around with Zapier or Make. Make used to be what's called Integromat, but they changed the name because we're all using softwares that you could probably connect with one of those, like with Make or Zapier, and that starts showing you what's possible. I think like the example I gave with, you enter a new person into your CRM and then an email is, generated. I would venture to guess 9 out of 10 people are using Wealthbox, Redtail, or some other software that capability I described is 100% possible and would make your life a lot easier if you were able to do that. And so I would start with those little ones, okay, can I just connect this software to this software and cut out a step in my current process? And then you'll naturally, if you can do it, you'll start getting more interested. And so that coupled with just watching people do stuff on YouTube, I think would really get you up to speed way faster than you think it could.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's in a deep well on YouTube, but a couple of refined searches, you'll end up where you
Yeah,
need to be.
I found with any topic, there's the guy or the girl that is their life's mission to bring education and awareness for whatever it is.
Are you
And
the guy?
so, no, I'm not the guy. Absolutely not. But there are a few guys, and I think they are mainly guys. There's a few girls in the no code space for certain tools that, I mean, it's amazing all the stuff they put out. And so I recently was trying to figure out, so I built a cash flow planning tool in Bubble. Because again, I had people asking me questions. I had a spreadsheet for it, but I would send it to them and they're just like, I don't know where to put stuff. I'm scared I'm going to break it. So I built a tool for that. And there was one part of it that I couldn't quite figure out how I wanted to do it or how to get it to display correctly. And so there was this guy that I follow on Twitter, and he puts out some videos that I just sent him a message and just said, hey, do you have any pointers on how to do this? And he sent me a 30-minute video walking me through exactly how to do it. And it worked perfectly. And it was because I had found him on YouTube and Twitter, and so, I mean, there are a lot of people that love helping people in that space, but I think it starts with what's a low-hanging fruit problem I have that if I could solve, it would really cut some pain points out. And
Proof of concept.
If you do that, you kind of get hooked on, what else can I cut out?
Well, and as advisors, we're always sensitive to the time it takes to do things. And I mean, I'm sure there's people listening that say, well, yeah, I have a spreadsheet that I use with clients. I pull it up in client meetings. And to your point, like the advisor does the driving on it. but might be thinking, but this would be great if we had it on the website. Um, yes, no code. You don't have to be a coder. So yeah, you don't have to go back to college and get a 4-year degree in, computer science in order to do that. So now no code saves you 4 years. How much how much time does it take to do this? I know this is like, do you have to be a hobbyist? Do you have to be just completely, impressed and in love with the concept like you are to dive in to do this? Or can somebody that's just like, hey, I'm really just trying to use this as an efficiency tool. I have this spreadsheet. It would be kind of cool to put it on my website that people can come to and use. Is this something you could
Mhm.
do in just an afternoon, or is this going to be a 6-week project, which is still better than 4 years learning computer science and
Yeah, yeah.
coding? But you know what I mean? Like, how long
Yeah.
does it take? Is what
Yeah,
people, is what I'm wondering.
I would say to build an application that, like, for your example, that's going to be on your website and stuff, it's going to take, there's probably a pretty good learning curve there.
Yeah.
And now some of that depends on if you want it to look good, or if this, like, hey, the only people who are going to use this are going to be people who are clients of mine already. They don't care what what it looks like. They're more concerned with the output. But if it's something where it's like, no, this could be, prospects are using it, a prospecting tool, it could take a while because there's so many little nuances. Again, like the big thing, and one of the things I mentioned earlier, like if somebody says, hey, I want to build this application. Well, my first question is, well, what's it going to be used on? Is it going to be on a computer screen most of the time? A phone? A tablet? All three? Because that will, even the answer to that it's a rabbit hole of, okay, well, I need to build it in a way that it could work for any of these,
Mm.
or it's like, no, it's just going to be on a computer. Well, then I'm going to take a totally different approach, not totally different, but there'll be less things to consider. So I think the afternoon type projects are, hey, I want whenever, you know, I enter a new person in my CRM for a welcome email to get drafted in my Gmail, and then for a to-do list item to show up on my Todoist, which is a to-do list software, to show up on there to trigger me to go in and send it. Like you could do that in an afternoon. Building a totally custom software, it'd probably be more on that 6 week side.
So for the typical advisor who's not looking for a new hobby of no code app building, but is intrigued by kind of what you're talking about, would you say, like, if you have a problem, pick on operational where you're in automation,
Mm-hmm.
like is kind of like the first line of defense, like check out Zapier and
Yes.
what integrations already exist with the softwares you're trying to get to talk to, and then if and is Bubble almost like a step two, like when it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
already exist with kind of a more formal process, then you go
Yep.
under the hood and start building.
Yep. I would say the first step, like you said, is these softwares that are essentially kind of the connectors, the connect softwares we're already using. We're already comfortable using what these middle softwares, so Zapier make, what they do is create this connection that it's like a daisy chain type thing, oh, so now when I hit send for that email, it will do this other thing that I would have had to manually remember to go do. So then once you start getting comfortable with that and how it works and how things get triggered, then you can start looking at a software where you build the whole thing, and I want it to look like this, or I want our project management to work this way. That's where, yeah, I do think there's like a baseline understanding, and then it just becomes, like we all know these woodworkers who are like, I built my own kitchen table, I built my own couch, it's like everything they see, they're like, oh, I can build that,
I
well,
built this, yeah.
yeah, it's not dissimilar to like with software. Like you can look at any application and be like, oh, I could build that. How would I build that? Would I do it this way or that way? And so once you get those kind of baseline understandings of how information moves between sites and on a singular site, that's when if you're curious in that, I think the natural progression is something like a bubble where you have kind of open architecture to build it how you want it.
Is there anybody that should just not bother? That this is just not for you? If you're this sort of person, don't even worry about it. Just keep doing what you're doing. Or is this sort of for anybody and everybody?
Yeah, I think the you have to have a certain level of interest in the details, because there are certain points where it's like, no, this has to happen for this, you know, this very what seems, immaterial thing needs to happen before this one. So there has to be a very strong sense of like being interested in the details, a logical type, which I think is why I was initially interested in it because it's very, you think about building Legos, if
Sequential,
you're,
yeah.
yeah, very sequential. Okay, I need to do these things. And then as you get better at that, you start to understand the nuance of, oh, well, I could do it this way or that way. So somebody that doesn't enjoy getting into the weeds and like really thinking through the architecture almost on how you build something probably isn't going to enjoy it. If they're more just kind of like, don't really care about organization or anything like that, it would probably be a somewhat frustrating
Frustrating.
endeavor for
Yeah.
them.
Okay, good. Well, if people have enjoyed listening to you and want to know where to go to hear more about who you are and what do you do, where should they go to find you?
Yeah, I think the best place is probably Twitter. At TBWoods2. That's got a link to. I'm involved in not just my financial planning business, some other businesses, and so they're and I even have a little blurb about I like to do no code stuff, and so I'm always interested in hearing about projects people are working on. So that's probably the best place to find me.
Well, Travis, thank you so much for joining us here, and we appreciate you telling us what this is and what it's all about, and why it might not be so unexpected after all.
Yep. Thanks, guys. I enjoyed it.
Yep, thanks.
Unexpected Hobbies of Financial Advisors is brought to you by Fiduciary CFO, forward-thinking tax and planning solutions for business owners, like RIA firms and their business owner clientele. The opinions of Brian, Joshua, and their guests are for entertainment purposes and should not be construed as legal, tax, financial, or investment advice. You should know better than to take any of this content seriously. Thanks for being a fan of the show. If you were listening and thought to yourself, hey, I know somebody they need to have on the show, you can do something about that. Go to unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate and tell us who they are and what they do that's so interesting and unexpected. If we agree, we'll send them an invitation and we'll hope they say yes. Now it's unexpectedhobbies.com/nominate.